Hello, everyone, and welcome to Our American Government. I am your host, Mr. Samuelson, and today we are learning about state government. So, we're going to start with the basis of state government, state constitutions. Each of the 50 states of the United States has its own state constitution. Now, a state constitution is that document that establishes the rules for how government works. Just like we have a federal constitution, we have state constitutions as well, and it is the rule book, the playbook for how government functions. Now, a state constitution is superior to any state law. So within a state, any law created by the legislature cannot violate that state's constitution. However, the state constitution cannot be in violation of the federal constitution. According to the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, nothing can be above the U.S. Constitution. So state constitutions are below that. Now, within each state, we have state legislatures. Most state legislatures are organized just like the U.S. Congress, with a House and with a Senate. A notable exception to this is Nebraska, where they only have one House, one chamber. Now, state legislatures originally only met for a couple of months during a year, as some states only met once every 2 years for a couple of months, because it didn't seem to be that big of a job. Government was supposed to be small, not have that much role in our lives. But as the role of government has increased and more things have fallen under the government's responsibility, the sessions for state legislatures have grown longer and longer, to the point where most state legislatures now meet for most of the year. All right, so what do? Well, they make laws. Like with Congress, the primary role of a state legislature is to write laws. Now, every law begins with a bill. Okay, and that bill can be introduced in either chamber. It can be introduced in the House or in the Senate in most states. But it does need to be approved by both chambers before it can become a law. And it does need to go to the governor and get the governor's signature to become effective. So the whole process is outlined here, where it's first introduced. It goes into committee hearings, where just a small group of lawmakers will talk about it. Then go to floor action, okay? If it passes in that chamber, say it's a House, it goes over to the Senate committee where it's met at, and then the Senate as a whole votes. Then if they made any changes, it has to go back to the original House to be re-voted on before it goes to the governor to be signed. And that's the whole process in most states. Now, if the governor does not sign it, it will not become a law. So the state governors. Governors are the chief executives of their states. They're like the president, but of a state. The primary role then of the governor is to enforce the laws of the state. That is their big job, enforcing laws. But most governors are also charged with other things as well, including managing a state's budget. That falls on the governor in most states. They draw up the budget and send it to the legislature, rather than the legislature and the executive kind of working together on it. They also oversee the state's militia, which we refer to as the National Guard. So if you hear about the Michigan National Guard or the Ohio National Guard, or the governor's asked for help with from the Oregon National Guard, they're talking about the state's formal militia. All right, other state executives. Unlike at the federal level, most states require elections for other high offices. When we're talking about the president and the presidency, he appoints or she appoints members of their cabinet, but in most states, it doesn't work that way. In most states, people like the state treasurer, secretary of state, and attorney general, these are big offices that exist in most states. These are elected, and they sometimes come from different political parties. Now, there's another elected position in most states called a lieutenant governor, kind of like a vice president. Some states have the governor and lieutenant governor run on the same ticket. Some have them run on different. So you could actually have a lieutenant governor who's a different political party than the governor. That can and does happen. Other government jobs, however, are appointed and appointed by the governor. Your state director of transportation and whatnot doesn't tend to be an elected position. All right, the state court system. States have their own laws, and because they have their own laws, they're going to have their own court system to interpret those laws under their state constitution. Most states start out at the trial court level. We can see that down here. Before they go to intermediate appeals courts, they come by a variety of names in different states, but appeals or intermediate courts are common names. Before you go to the highest state court, usually called the state Supreme Court. This follows under a similar structure to federal courts, but of course the Supreme Court of the United States is over any state court. So state court decisions can be appealed to the United States Supreme Court. Now, most of the crimes that you hear about or you see or you think about, if you're watching a crime drama on television, almost all of that falls under the state court systems because the state courts really do deal with most criminal activity. All right, checks and balances, our last look. As with the federal government, state governments have a system of checks and balances in place. You'll recognize a lot of this from the federal system. Governors can veto laws, right? Legislature passes a law. I don't like it. I forbid it. I veto it. Legislatures, in most cases, can override those vetoes. If they get a supermajority within those states, usually 2/3 of state legislatures can override a governor's veto. We also have state Supreme Courts, and they can rule that the actions of either the governor, the chief executive, or the legislative branch, the House and Senate, are unconstitutional according to the state constitution. And if that happens, then those decisions, those actions by the governor or the legislature are reversed. All right, that was it for today on our state government. I hope you learned something, and I do look forward to seeing you next time. Farewell.